Good morning. I'm so happy to see you in 3D. Let's begin, as always, by taking a few breaths together. So if you will, just exhale and take a deep breath in. And let go. Another deep breath in. And let go. One more deep breath in. And let go. Well, my friends, we have much to talk about. Our topic this month across CSL is cosmic connection, and the suggested topic for today was bridges over troubled water. And the thing that I want to talk about within that is how to love the unlovable. So first we have to just start with this idea of our cosmic connection, of recognizing that we live in a universe that is absolutely interconnected to itself, that everything within life, everything within each one of us, everything that we experience is woven together and interconnected in some way. And some of it I find to be almost unfathomable. It's cosmic, it's universal, it's consciousness, it's beautiful. And also, we must begin to develop a consciousness that when we look out into the world, we're looking for the places where things are connected. We're looking to connect the dots. We cannot continue to look at ourselves and the circumstances that are happening in the world as separate things. That if we actually believe that we are all connected through this idea that God is all that there is, then there's only one thing happening, and that one thing is being reflected and refracted in everything that we're all experiencing together. And so that brings us to then looking at the troubled waters that we are all treading through in this interesting time. That we are moving through a turbulence in consciousness, and we're moving through an upheaval of ways of doing and being. And that's the troubled water. That's the water is almost always a symbol of consciousness. And we are moving currently in this time of changing thought, of changing consciousness, of changing rhythms, of changing harmonies. I really believe, as Leah said in the song we heard before, that we are in this great turning, that we are watching the wheel of change happen. We are watching the dance of Shiva's destruction so that newness can be brought forth into the world. If we truly believe that everything is connected and there's only one thing happening and that one thing is God, then we must be willing to look for that everywhere. Many of you know that one of my base practices is to ask one simple question: how is this God? When something painful shows up in my life, when I see something reflected in the world, when I have an experience of another person or of a situation, I have to bring myself to a place of asking, how is this God? How is this revealing wholeness? How is this an expression of truth? How is this proof that the universe is reflecting us back to us in every moment? And I'll tell you that that question, moving through 2020 and watching the chaos and watching the divisiveness and the separation that is being projected in front of all of us all the time, that question of how is this God is almost brought me to a bit of crisis of faith, if you will. Because there's a whole lot out there that's really hard to look at. There's a lot that's happening in the world that's hard to say, I can see God in that. And I know for many of us, it shows up as individuals, as a particular person, as policies, as the political parties. We see a lot that's happening in the world right now that's very difficult to look at and say, how is this God? There was a quote in the first song that we heard that said, look for the one that everyone hates and love them. That's the task. That's the thing I want to talk about today. And so there's a story that Neil Donald Walsh tells called The Little Soul in the Sun. It's actually a children's book. And I want to summarize that story really quickly, which is this. There's a little soul in the universe, in heaven, or wherever we are before we come here. And it has this realization: everything is love. I am love. The universe is made of love. I want to go have a life and learn how to love. I want to come out of the oneness and go into the separation, into the difficulty, into the experience, and learn what it's like to love. And so as the little soul is preparing to incarnate and choose a life and enter into a body, there's another soul in this heaven place that is the soul who loves the little soul the most. It's their best friend, it's their mom, it's their lover, it's the person, the being that they feel the greatest sense of unity with. And that little soul says, wait a minute, you want to go learn about love? Let me come with you. And I'll help you. I'll show up as the person who challenges you the most. I'll show up as someone who's going to hurt you and harm you. I'm going to show up as someone who's going to make you question what you believe about love. And then remember, if you can, that it's me. And in these experiences, ask, how can I reveal love in this moment? What if we could look out into the world and look for one person who everyone seems to hate the most and ask, could this be the one who loves me the most? Could this be my beloved here asking me to learn how to reveal love in a new way? Could this individual, could these circumstances, could these times be here to ask me how to rise to a new level of love and compassion and understanding? Could it be? You know, I'll tell you, and this is not political, this is a personal experience. When I heard that our president had contracted COVID-19, I will tell you there was a little part of me that had some interesting thoughts. And I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people who were having some interesting thoughts about that. And something happened inside of me, which is that little crisis of faith that I mentioned earlier. Because as these little thoughts started to crawl around in my mind, I had to ask myself, Elisha, what do you believe? Do I truly believe that there is only one of us here and that one is God? Or do I believe that that's true for everyone except for maybe that person? Suddenly, I either believe that God is all there is or I don't. And I have to make a choice. We have to make a choice. Eddie Watkins Jr. has a song that I listen to almost every Sunday before I give a talk. I always listen to this song. And there's a line in it that says, I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. And what if we replace God with love? I am the place where love lives. I am the place where love is moving and having its being. I am the place where love shows up. What would it look like for each one of us to begin walking through the world, walking through these troubled waters, walking through the turmoil in consciousness, really willing to look for that little soul who loves us so much, just waiting for us to wake our love up in a bigger way? What if we could actually look into the world and look for the ones who are asking us to hate and do the greatest revolutionary act of resistance we can do and love them? What if love was the weapon of the future that we saw in was one of the quotes in that song we saw? What if we begin to choose to move into the sea of consciousness that we are all sharing and begin to be the ones who are willing to step out of the deep field of emotion and move into a place of knowing. So that what we begin to choose is love. And that if we choose love, it can allow each one of us to get out of the turbulence, to get out of the turmoil, to get out of the troubled water a bit, and get up onto the shore, and then actually look around to gain some perspective and see where can we begin to build the bridges. Where can we begin to find those senses, that sense of connection? Where can we begin to bridge the gap between us and the other? My teacher, Gene Houston, says that one of the greatest challenges of the 2020s is going to be to bridge the great divide of otherness. We must be the bridge. We must be the place that is willing to look through the hate, to look through the separation, to look through the confusion, and look for oneness, look for connection, look for God, look for the ways that whatever is being brought to us is a question of how can I learn how to love more? Dr. King says we are going to thrive together as brothers or we will die together as fools. That we must come together as a human family. We must come together in our awareness of our oneness, or the separation is going to fracture all that is. And it's up to us what we choose. It's up to us what we participate in. It's up to us what we see. I was watching the debates a few weeks ago, and as I watched a non-conversation take place, I felt the agitation and the frustration and the irritation building up in mind around me. And I posted to Facebook, and then I just started texting anyone who came to mind and said, if you're yelling at the TV, could you just stop and pray for a sec? Because if you are yelling at the TV, then you are magnifying that chaos that you're watching. If you're allowing it to bring more emotion and anger and frustration out of you, guess what? You're participating. You're doing exactly what is being asked of you by what you are seeing. You are making more of it and bringing it into your heart and into your home. But what if we are the ones who are willing to stand in principle, and when we see the discord, when we see the confusion, when we see see and hear these things that bring it out of us, that we stop and say, you know what? I will not allow this hate in my heart. I will not magnify the confusion. I am going to be a place where love happens. I'm going to be a place that is choosing to look and see deeply and look for God and ask, how is this God? How can I love in this moment? How can I be love? How can I be the one who is the bridge where other people can't see a connection? How can I be the one who's willing to reach through the difficulty and know that there's something underneath it that needs our love and attention? I had this image the other day of the Jabberwocky in Alice in Wonderland, which is this big sort of angry dragon that Alice comes across that is, scary and needs to be slain or whatever. And Alice comes to the Jabberwocky at some point in the story and finds that it has a thorn in its paw. And it's not a monster. It's in pain. And that so much of what we see as monstrosities in the world, in individuals, in behavior, in thoughts, and in action, is really coming from a place of deep pain and suffering. And we project ourselves into the world. The quote that we had earlier reminded us that when we've been hurt, we develop mechanisms in order to protect ourselves from being hurt in the future. And oftentimes that looks like hurting others, because in the song we heard, hurt people, but healed people, heal people. So if we want to heal what's out there, if we want to heal what we're seeing, if we want to heal the hatred and the divisiveness and the separation that we're seeing in the world, guess where it starts? Healed people heal people. If we want to heal what we're seeing out there, then we must take it as an introspective invitation to look at how we can heal it in ourselves. How we can heal our inner wounds so that we be the healed people who heal people as opposed to the hurt people who hurt people. Because if we are unwilling to address our hurt places and do our own healing, and the universe is a mirror, we're just going to keep getting us back to us. And I guarantee you that the universe is reflecting us back to us in every moment. And that the universe, reality, our experience is a perfect reflection of what is happening within our collective consciousness. None of us exists in a vacuum. Yes, we are creators, but we are co-creating. We are all creating. History is creating. Consciousness is creating. And it's raining back down onto us a reflection of the collective mind. And so if we see that healing needs to happen, we have to look for where it exists in us so that we can be the healed people who become the healers. Jesus reminds us to pray for those who hurt you, to love your enemies, to be one who is willing to rise to a new place of consciousness in the face of other, in the face of difficulty, in the face of pain. What would it look like if we truly were the peacemakers and the ones that individuals see as responding differently to the stimulus that everyone else is reacting to? What if we were people of deep, cultivated response and powerful awareness that are conscious of the fact that what we focus on, what we give our time and energy to, what we emote into, is what creates? Emotion is energy in motion, and that is the most powerful creative force that each one of us has. I've come to this idea recently that thought creates slowly, but emotions create very fast. That our emotions pour through us easily. Thought takes a while to get into form. And so what are we giving our emotions to? What are we participating with our energy? Where are we allowing our energy to be moved? Are we guided by something internal, by a sense of connection? Or are we swayed by circumstance and all that's being invited from us in that field of reflection? We must be willing to be a place where love happens so deeply that we truly can love the unlovable. And it's not just loving the unlovable out there. It's not just looking for that person that everyone hates and trying to love them. It's also looking within and looking at the unlovable parts within ourselves. Every one of us has something that we don't want everybody else to see. Every one of us has thoughts, ways of doing or being or reacting or habits or whatever they are that are our unlovable parts. And it's really easy to project those parts out into the world and paint them on people and hate them. It's a whole nother challenge to acknowledge that what we're seeing is pointing us within. And that whatever irritation, whatever difficulty is being brought up out there is something in me that I've been hiding, that I've not been wanting to look at. You know, this is the conversation we've been having about privilege and about systemic oppression and racism in this country, is that we can all see it out there, And it's really difficult to recognize that each one of us has been participating in projecting and creating this experience in the world for other people. That what we see out there is actually coming from within each one of us. And that we all are holding a piece of the puzzle. We each have a piece of the picture. And that if we want to see it change out there, we have to change our little corner. We each have to clean up our corner of the house, if you will, so that we can all share in a new collective experience that is much more ordered and together. But we have to do it. We have to be the ones who are absolutely willing to be in the mystery and the question and the contemplation of how is this God? Are you my beloved? Are you my beloved? Is this situation showing me something about myself that I didn't know was there? And when we find those little thoughts that wiggle up and those emotions that start to move around in us, those are beautiful indicators of where to look. You know, for me, it was that interesting little thought that I had about someone's health and well-being that made me question what I believe. That made me question, do I actually practice what I stand up here and speak to you on a regular basis? And it took me to pause. It took me to feel that in myself and say, wait a minute, this is not in alignment with who I say I am and what I claim to believe. And that has opened up a whole basket of contemplation for me and a lot to look at. And it's interesting how many people I've had conversations with that this question is up for. How do I truly practice looking for God when it seems so hard? And I think the only thing to do is practice. We call it spiritual practice. We don't call it spiritual doing it right every time. We call it spiritual practice. We have to continuously be in the practice of returning to the question, of returning to God, of returning to an awareness that there is only one of us here and everything we experience is some kind of reflection showing us what we need to see. And it's that practice, it's that regular contemplation that is difficult in the beginning, that gets easier and easier and easier the more that we do it, so that eventually it becomes automatic behavior. But it's that regular practice that's going to allow us to get out of the troubled waters, out of the tumultuous consciousness, out of the muck and mire of all that's happening, in order to gain some clarity. And then with that sense of clarity outside of the confusion, we can then start to look for the places where we can bridge the connections, where we can bridge the gap, where we can look for the self in other, where we can participate in building a new idea, a new thought, a new way of doing and being. And I believe that we each have the power to participate in this process of the great turning. And that the world is in a moment of shift. And that it's very clear to us that things are not as they were. Just look around the room, or if you're at home, notice that you're not here. Things are different. The world can change in the blink of an eye. And all the ways that we do and be could shift dramatically, quickly. We've learned that this year. Well, what if we did it on purpose? What if we did it with conscious intention? What if we did it as a collective heart waking up? What if this difficult time is just a practice round for how dramatic the change can be in the positive direction? What if this moment of what if this time in 2020 and all the disruption and upheaval is just proof to all of us That we could dramatically shift how we do things, and it doesn't have to happen slowly. What if this experience that we're all sharing that seems difficult is the mental equivalent of how easy it could be? Just flip it over. Just turn it upside down. Just recognize that it's two sides of the same coin. And that our job is to be the place where love lives, moves and breathes and has its being. Let each one of us be the place where love shows up so that we can look out into the world and look for the one that everyone is throwing their hate at and say, you know what? I want to be the one who learns how to love you through this. Right now, today, I'm going to choose to look from the eyes of love. I'm going to choose to recognize that every single person is my mirror. And that if I see something in them that I don't like, it's an opportunity to look for something within myself that is the reflection, the flip side, the other side of that. So that we can become the healed people who heal people. This is what's up for us right now. And this is the conversation that I think we need to continuously be engaging in community, as individuals, in connection with others and within ourselves, of raising the conversation to a higher level, of beginning to ask ourselves, our friends, our community, the family, the people around us, how are you practicing love? How are you looking for a higher thought? How are you lifting yourself out of the troubled waters of consciousness and holding yourself in a sense of peace and well-being? Because if we want to heal the great divide of otherness, we have to begin with ourselves. So take a deep breath in. And let go. And take another deep breath in and let go. One more together breath in and let go. And let us share in the awareness here and now that love is the nature of all things. That love is a force, that is a presence that holds the entirety of the universe together. That it is love that holds particles together and holds planets in orbit. That it is love that draws us into relationship with each other. That it is love that is coursing through our veins. Let each one of us remember that the Spirit of the living God, that is the presence of life, that is evolution itself, that is the one who is experiencing everything, is that which is living and breathing within each one of us. And that each one of us is that little soul who desired to come into this world of experience to learn how to love more. And that everyone we meet is the beloved here, trying to help wake us up to that love, to that commitment that we made, that I am here to learn how to love more. And so let us look out into the world and look for the hatred and the separation and the difficulty and the discord and allow it to be our invitation to love into something greater than we can comprehend. Because when we love into the difficult places, it wakes something in us that wakes a love and a peace and and an understanding that goes beyond our human experience. That there is something greater that lives within us that is waiting and coming forth through this waking that we are all participating in. And that one is love, that one is God, that one is forward movement and expansion. It is life itself. So let us be for life, let us be for love, let us be the place where something more is being revealed in these times. Let each one of us be the place where the healing happens so that we can be the healed people who heal people. And knowing that as we participate in the healing, we bridge the divide of otherness with love, and we find connection in the world. And so let us meet the seeming opposition, discord, and separation with a desire to look for and find a sense of love, of connection, and of oneness. Because indeed, there is only one of us here, and that one is God. And so let us be grateful to remember that there is a power for good in this universe that is greater than we are individually, greater than we are collectively, greater than all things. It moves all things. It has been driving the force of evolution towards expansion and greater complexity for 14 billion years. It's not stopping now. Let us recognize that this power for good is always unfolding, and it's up to us to participate and expand it. And so let us continuously surrender to that power for good that we call God, that we call love. And let it be the presence that moves through us. Let it be that which sees through our eyes. Let it be that which hears through our ears. Let it be that that speaks and responds through us. Let each one of us be a place where love lives and moves and has its being. Let each one of us be a place where love shows up. And so it is.